What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So I wanted to follow up a bit on a video I made last week where I was talking about Umar Nurmagomedov and kind of what his future was like. I kind of viewed him as being at a bit of a crossroads where if he beat Batista, he wouldn't be far away from a title shot. He could potentially beat Merab. He could maybe even get a trilogy fight with Merab if he did lose, kind of a Max Holloway-Volkanovski situation. And if he wins the trilogy, then, that's all well and good. He goes on to be this long-reigning champion. And I still think that's all possible, and I definitely still view Umar as probably the second best guy in the division and, probably the next champion once Merab's out of the way, whether that's from Merab retiring, moving weight classes, or Umar beating him, we'll have to see. But my money would be on Umar to be the next champ. And he did beat Batista. I talked about how if Batista beat him, that could be a real, career-altering setback. Not the end of the world, but very much a bad setback. Umar pretty clearly won. But he won in a way where I just don't need to see the fight. I really don't need to see Umar fight Merab. At least not next. If Merab goes out and just cleans house on Jan again, I don't need to see an Umar rematch. I want to see Umar fight at least one more person. And just have a better win, Again, Umar did clearly win, but he was tired by the end. He didn't get much offense going. There weren't really any serious submission threats. He didn't get much ground and pound going. The grappling looked very elite, but if all he can do is control with it, it's not that inspiring. He didn't look that great on the feet. He got dropped by a knee in the second round. In the first round, he got put in a toe hold. And it looked very tight, and it kind of looked to me like he was limping a bit after the fight, so I think it did do some damage. And that's the kind of submission that people will, weirdly tank damage in, even in training. A couple months ago, I was rolling with a dude, and I had him in a toe hold, and I'm putting it on, and he's not tapping, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put a little more pressure on, and so I keep cranking, and I'm doing it slowly. I didn't, rush it and just snap the shit. But I keep putting more pressure on, and I start hearing stuff popping in his fucking ankle. And so I let go right away, and I was like, oh, you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. And it's just what? It's like, dude, just fucking tap. Why are you risking, injury in the training room? What are we doing here? You're not even, prepping for a serious tournament or anything. And, and you never know, some people's joints, pop more easily, and it's not indicative of anything. But I could just feel from the pressure that it wasn't cracking his knuckles. It felt like actual huge buildup and then pop. So my point being, the reason I tell that anecdote is that is a submission where people will absorb damage and just keep going. And that is what it looked like Merab did. When Gordon Ryan had that rematch the other a year ago with who the hell is that? Now I'm blanking on the guy's name, the wrestler from B Team. But when they had a rematch, he put Gordon in a toe hold and Gordon didn't tap. And afterwards he was saying I was hearing stuff tearing and snapping. He just chose not to tap. And all that's to say, I'm not saying I'm not saying that Umar is going to be sidelined with an injury because of that, but I'm just saying it's not a great looking victory. It's a relatively uninspiring win, I would say. Sure, we saw that Batista is quite good. We saw that he's better than his number 9 ranking suggests. We saw that he's better than, the fans would like to believe he is, because he, of course, became, everyone's most hated fighter when he beat Jose Aldo the way he did. But nevertheless, I don't need to see Umar get a title shot again, especially since Merab, he's already rematched O'Malley. He's about to rematch Jan. I just don't need to see him rematch everyone. I don't need to see him rematch Corey, rematch Umar. He has better shit he can do. Okay? And so what this video is really about is what I want to see from Merab if he beats Jan. And those are two things. I want to see him fight Pantoja. And granted, that's assuming Pantoja wins his next fight. But I want to see Pantoja move up. I want to see Merab fight him. And if he beats him, I want to see Merab move up and fight Volkanovski. In a perfect world, I mean, you can debate what's perfect, because it would be really cool to see Pantoja beat Merab. That would be pretty cool. I like Merab a lot, but to see Pantoja get his back and submit him would be fucking nuts. In many ways I like Pantoja more than I like Merab. And that would be pretty nuts for him and for his legacy and everything. And that would be a cool underdog victory. But in a kind of more realistic perfect world, I would say Merab beats Jan. Pantoja wins his next fight. Pantoja goes up, fights Merab. Merab wins. Volkanovski fights Evloev and wins. And then Merab moves up and fights Volkanovski. That would be sort of how I want to see things play out. And in the meantime, Umar can fight whoever and then fight for a vacant belt when Merab leaves or something. Like, I really don't need to see that rematch. Like, sure, in many ways, he still seems like the second best fighter in the division. He still gave Merab probably his toughest fight definitely his toughest fight in his title run. But I just don't need to see it. The only way I'd want to see it is if Merab insists on staying at bantamweight. He doesn't want to move up. And if after he beats Pantoja, Umar has in the interim already beaten like Jan or O'Malley or Corey again, or like something like, or Song Yadong. Like, he just needs some more good wins, and he needs to look a little bit more convincing in those wins before we throw him back in there. Because prior to Batista, like, the guy had no top 10 wins aside from Sandhagen. He was never the champion. He's never the interim champion. He's not done anything really other than pass the eye test and have a surname that people can get behind in order to earn a fucking title shot again. Like, it's the Cyril Gane thing where it's like people are pointing out like Cyril Gane has like miraculously found a way to get a 4th title shot, when he probably only deserved the first one. You know what I mean? And I don't need to see that same shit with Umar, especially when Merab's got some like real legacy to build. So those are my 2 cents. Like, Merab, beat Jan, fight Pantoja, move up. Umar can fight for the vacant belt. Like, that's fine with me.